Hi, babes. Welcome back to Tea and Glitter, the podcast. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Evelina, better known as Ivy of the Les Vixens. I'm a lesbian burlesque performer and producer, a safe space creator, a busy bee, and I am obsessed with queer people, especially queer women, living their best lives. And for those of you who are not new here, you're probably like, bitch, where you been? You drop your 1 year anniversary podcast and then poof, gone. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. If I triggered anyone's abandonment issues, my sincerest apologies. I did not intend on doing that. It has just been a lot. Let me tell you what. Let me tell you. I'll tell you. I am just a one-woman show out here and I am doing my best. So it has been quite the crazy few months. There has been my birthday, a bunch of shows, and then October, which we are at the tail end of currently, is my personal and professional busiest month of every year. And it's not just because of Halloween and shows, but also because it's Orlando Pride Month, and there's so much that goes into what we do for Pride. The float, which this year we had custom made, so it was no longer a U-Haul trailer that I decorated. We actually had an LGBTQ plus artist build out and design a float, and it was so great and sturdy. I'll tell you what, that thing's gonna last. It is solid, and I had like a week where there was just lesbians in my yard with power tools building things. Honestly, it was incredible. It was like something I would have written fan fiction about, but it was actually happening in my yard. I'd wake up every day, go out into the yard, and be like, "Oh, it's good morning, everyone!" And there's like lesbians sawing shit and nailing shit and painting shit. Oh, it was great. It was great. But anyway, and then before we like go off onto this fantasy land of lesbians building things, which feel free to take a moment, pause this podcast, and have your own little daydream about it. It was better than you're imagining. Then we had the production. We've been given the opportunity to perform on the main stage at Pride, which is great because there's nothing else for lesbians out there, really. And this year I wrote a new production, and it was The Lavender Resistance, because I wanted our production to be a little more Pride was a riot. So I wanted to kind of bring that element into it and talk about, the things we won't stand for and the things that we do stand for, and how important it is to kind of own our identities and to fight for our rights and our mental health and our bodies and our sensuality and sexuality and all those things. And I kind of created the Lavender Resistance. So that's kind of like our army of lesbians who are living their best lives and fighting for our rights. And it was really incredible. I hope some of you got to see it and got to see our float in the parade and all of that. Then there's also all of our regular gigs, all of our Halloween gigs, just like everything. It's just been a lot, okay? And I'm not making excuses. I'm just letting you know. I haven't been able to like catch my breath. And also Medieval Times, I'm the queen there. They decided October was the month to install a brand new show, which we only do that every like 5 years. So I spent this month of October not only doing everything that I always do for October, which is already insanely busy, but on top of that, rehearsals, writing practice, learning a whole new script and a whole new show. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot, but I'm here now. I am here. I'm queer. I'm ready to get into this episode with you guys. And I thank you so, so, so much for you still being here. Like, thank you so much for wanting to listen to me talk and for hanging out with me today. And I'm just happy to be here. I hope you guys have been living your best lives. And if not, I hope this episode jumpstarts you back into living your best life. So let's get into this episode, shall we? Now that I have come to you and begged for your forgiveness and given you all my reasons for why I haven't been here. So when I first started thinking about this episode, I was sitting in a dressing room, staring at myself in the mirror. I spend a lot of time in dressing rooms and a lot of time in front of mirrors and a lot of time around beautiful, talented people. And that's not always easy, if I'm being completely honest. Well, hold on. Okay, let me set the scene for you because this is how I tell stories. So when I say I'm sitting in a dressing room looking at myself in a mirror, you might be picturing some like glamorous, gorgeous dressing room with like well-lit vanities that make us all look gorgeous and flawless and poreless and perfect. But the reality of showgirl life is not quite that. I'm going to give you guys a little glimpse behind the glamour and let you know that it's not. It's often really not glamorous at all. Most dressing rooms have surprisingly harsh lighting and dirty mirrors, if we get a dressing room at all, to be honest, because a lot of times we're changing like in the liquor closet or the venue's office, and we have like just our little makeup mirrors that we're doing our makeup in front of, and like keep the, oh, there's Fenton. Oh, that's a candle. You okay, bud? Hi, buddy. Hi, honey. Gosh, we're like, what, 2 minutes in and we've already got a kitty. He's ready. He's ready for the podcast. He's so handsome. Oh, those are handsomes. You're so handsome. Okay, bye. Guess he was just using me as a bridge to get to the rest of his destination. Anyway, back to the episode. Fenton, you can come back anytime. We miss you. I love you. I hate to kind of like burst the bubble of the glamour, but I'm real with y'all, and it's oftentimes not glamorous at all. Ooh. Hi, best friend.
Oh my God, hi.
Hi.
So glad you're recording again.
Yay! My best friend just walked into my house because she lives next door to me, and she can do that whenever she wants.
It's gonna be such a good episode.
Thanks.
I'm
She's
so excited.
I don't know if y'all can hear her, but she's hyped that I'm recording this episode, as are, I'm sure, all of you. But no one's more hyped than I am. Okay, so anyway, where was I? I was talking about the dressing rooms not being very glamorous, right? Okay. Anyway, sometimes we do get really glamorous dressing rooms, and God bless those. Man, I live for those moments. So that's where we're at, right? We're in one of those dressing rooms where the lighting's not that great, a little harsh, and the mirrors are dirty, and that's where I'm starting to think about this episode. I'm in this dressing room staring at myself in the mirror, and I started to like pick myself apart, right? Like I'm just like looking at myself, I start picking myself apart, and I'm looking at the other girls in the dressing room. They look beautiful, right? Their makeup is flawless. It looks like, you know, YouTube makeup guru girly approved makeup, and they all have this dance background where they can like put their leg above their head and just, you know, I'm sitting there half naked, simultaneously picking myself apart in the mirror and then also comparing myself to the other performers in the room with me. And I'm looking in these mirrors, and they're starting to look like funhouse mirrors, and it's just getting a little rough, right? And then I have to throw on the rest of my costume, get out on stage, and be sexy and be confident. And I have to forget about every perceived flaw that I just spent the last 10 minutes analyzing and go out on stage in front of strangers, take off my clothes, dance around, and be empowering and entertaining and sexy. And the craziest part about this is that I do go out on that stage and feel sexy. I do go out on that stage and feel confident and empowered. And I do feel like I entertain the audience, and I connect, and I give people gay panic, and I make them feel good. I'm really leaning into what makes me different and the magic that is me and mine alone. And I feel like that's crazy to think about, right? Like, I had all these like bullshit thoughts about myself that I had to wrangle. I had all these feelings of maybe not good enoughness that I had to drop kick right out of the way as I'm stepping onto this stage. That I was being kind of like mean to myself and comparing myself and doing all these kind of like not great things. And then poof, you know, it all went away as I'm stepping out in front of an audience that could presumably also see all of those perceived flaws under that spotlight. Like, that is so wild to me, right? Like, it just makes me, it like kind of blows my mind that I could just be sitting there, you know, 5 minutes previously being like, ooh, and then I get on stage and I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. I'm going to go flirt with every single person in this room, and I'm going to look hot, and it's going to be great. And then like sometimes I have to go out and perform after someone who like did like a backflip or something crazy like that, right? And I'm just out there, you know, dancing like a dad at a barbecue. So it's this like really crazy situation. And I was thinking about it, right? And in those moments, like perhaps I was PMSing extra hard, right? And or being a little extra critical of myself in that moment that I started thinking about this episode. But it's like not an unheard occurrence for me. You know, I regularly have to deal with that critical voice that lives inside me that talks so much shit. And I know for a fact that I'm not the only one. I know for a fact that the other performers in that room with me were also experiencing that duality in our minds. You know, maybe not every time, but I know for a fact that almost every performer I know and have worked with experiences that same critical voice. And so while I'm in this dressing room, while I'm thinking about these things, while I'm kind of observing this phenomenon happening to me. I received a DM and it said, "Do you ever have days where you're just not feeling yourself? Because the human mind can be unkind and the world knows your body and soul are out of this world, but do you ever get in your head?" And so I got that message while I'm literally being in my head and being unkind to myself. And I knew for a fact that in spite of that, I was about to get on stage and kill it. Even though in that moment I was feeling a little more like a goblin gay versus a glamorous gay, which led me to think about the fact that I could legitimately let these feelings of not good enoughness, imposter syndrome, that negative self-talk, that critical voice inside me, I could let those things affect me. I could let them affect my performance, my confidence, or even my career, to be honest. Like I could literally talk myself out of being a good performer or even just feeling good about myself in general. But I sure don't. I have no interest in being miserable and I love what I do so much. So like, how do I do it? How do I still be human and get in my head occasionally or regularly and experience imposter syndrome, doubt, critical thoughts, and yet still not let all that bullshit take over and ruin my life? And it was just kind of an interesting observation that got me to start thinking about this and this episode. So today I wanted to dive into a chat about all of those things, navigating imposter syndrome, comparing ourselves, negative self-talk, and basically how I snap myself out of it. I want to share with you guys things that I've journaled about, things I've learned about in the industry, some of the things that I have to tough love myself about. I want to share with you guys how I get the job done while still acknowledging and accepting the fact that I am still human. And sometimes I do have very real feelings of not good enoughness and imposter syndrome. I also want to talk about imposter syndrome, not just in the typical sense, but also in a queer context. I think this is something that many of us struggle with, like not feeling pretty enough, not feeling good enough, not feeling smart enough, and for some of us, not feeling gay enough, right? Like maybe we don't feel experienced enough in the queer game to feel like a valid part of the community, or like maybe we've only had one relationship with a girl, or maybe no relationships with women, we've only been with men so far, or maybe we don't feel like we look gay enough, or like whatever, to be considered a valid part of the community. In addition to spending lots of time having to wrangle my own feelings of imposter syndrome, etc., I spend a lot of time in the community listening to you guys. Like you send me so many messages and you talk to me and you share with me your stories and your struggles. And I know for a fact a lot of you struggle with not feeling good enough and not feeling gay enough. Like I know so many bisexual girls who have never been with a girl before, they've never had a girlfriend, they've never been with a woman, they've only been with men so far, and they struggle so hard to still feel bisexual, even though in their heart of hearts they know that that's who and what they are. They just haven't had those experiences, so it makes it so much harder for them to feel like they can still claim to own that identity. It's just harder to feel, like you're a part of the community if you are in a heterosexual presenting relationship or what have you. And even my best friend, she's a lesbian, so when she's not in a relationship she feels less like a lesbian, because she's like, if my face is not regularly in a vagina, am I even gay? Who's to say, right? And I also feel like when you first come out, that it's so confusing and we have no idea what the hell is going on. So we're not fully confident in who we are or how we identify. And sometimes we even realize that how we came out is not the end of the story, right? Sometimes when you come out, you are, surrounded by veteran queers, right? Veteran gays, and you're just like a little baby dyke, not a full-grown lesbian, and that feeling of inadequacy can sometimes stay with us. And I know a lot of femmes who struggle with femme invisibility and kind of internalize that sometimes, and they have the imposter syndrome in that queer context. Because we don't automatically visually read as gay, we are constantly having to reassert and assert our gayness. We're often treated somehow as less valid because we are straight passing. Our identities are assumed for us, etc., etc., etc. And sometimes it gets really hard to be like, no, goddammit, just because I'm femme doesn't make me any less gay, or does it? There's this kind of queer confusion about how valid we are in the community based upon our experiences or lack thereof. Non-binary people, I feel like y'all are out here struggling to still feel non-binary when you're wearing something that might make you be perceived as one of the binary genders, or maybe you've got big old boobs and big old hips, right? And like, dang, it's just a struggle to like stay in your non-binary energy, in the truth of that non-binary feeling, even when you're just sitting at home, right? Because you've got a body that is so overtly girly, right? Like, does that make sense? I feel like it's a lot. It's a lot to wrangle, not just like not feeling good enough, but like perhaps your body doesn't lend itself to fit the identity that you want easily. And so it makes it harder to feel that identity. I know that is something that people have shared with me, like their struggles to feel still non-binary. We're going to talk more about imposter syndrome in a queer context later on in this episode, but imposter syndrome in general is such a bitch, right? And I hate it. I hate it so much. Feeling like we don't deserve our success or deserve love, or that we've somehow duped the world into thinking that we're hot and smart and capable, or feeling that our legitimately hard-earned achievements are somehow illegitimate. We're feeling like we're imposters within our own communities. Like, it can be such a mind fuck. And literally all of the sexy, successful, hot, talented people I know experience this. Every single one of those sexy motherfuckers feels not good enough sometimes, or like they've somehow duped the world into thinking that they deserve what they've earned. And the world in which we live is really set up to kind of intensify those feelings of not good enoughness. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? As they say, but like, my goodness, we are all thick as thieves with it. And how could we not be? We all know that social media is a highlights reel, right? We've heard that a million times. We get it. We're only seeing the most curated, gorgeous snapshots of people's lives. Like, we know that. We know it in our brains, but do we know it really? No, like, we know it to a degree, but knowing it doesn't mean that we're not still affected by it, or that we still don't compare ourselves to the people we see on Instagram and TikTok. And like, God, social media is so insane to me. Like, I feel like it's such an insane thing that we have to live with. It's like overwhelming how much content of filtered, perfect lives we are exposed to every time we look at our phones. You can just scroll and scroll and scroll for eternity, and it's all beautiful people with beautiful skin and perfect style and perfect lives and perfect relationships, and it's just like on and on and on and on and on it goes. And it has to fuck with our heads. Like, there's no way around it. There's just no way to be that exposed to curated perfection and not feel less because of it. And then even like people in our real lives, right? Like, it's so easy to compare ourselves to their successes and to what they have. Even if we are aware that the grass may not always be greener and we don't know what life is actually like on the other side, it's still, we still feel this kind of comparison, this kind of like, oh, they have what I don't, right? And like, I somehow am lacking. We somehow don't measure up even to the people in our real lives, not just to the people we see on social media. I did an episode on body image a while back, but this episode is gonna be different. It's not about just like not actively hating ourselves, which, that's always a struggle. Love that for us, especially in this day and age. But like, imposter syndrome, navigating the complex feelings of self-worth and not feeling like we deserve to have the things we have, and like not feeling good enough, not feeling entirely comfortable claiming our identities within our community for whatever reason. These are all things that I think are complex issues, right? And I've obviously, this episode is about that, and I've been kind of trying to figure out how to verbalize these things to you guys, and like what we can do about it. I'm going to use my own life as an example for a lot of this. I want to share with you guys what I do to snap myself out of this shit and get on with the show. The realizations that I've had, the tools that I use personally. I think my strategies for fighting these feelings kind of work for all of the above, right? These strategies and these tools work to fight imposter syndrome, or they work for me to fight my imposter syndrome, to snap myself out of those moments of comparison where my joy is completely gone because I've been comparing myself to someone else, whatever. These strategies work to curb the like mean girl self-talk. I hope that some of these tools and these strategies will help you deal with these silly, stupid little things. Yeah? Okay, so how do we not let these things consume us? Because I truly believe that the fact of life is that we will experience imposter syndrome. We will feel not good enough at times. We will have that little voice inside of all of us that talks shit. Like, it's just human nature for whatever reason, and seems to be a part of our collective psyche. I didn't want to get on this episode and be like, just be nice to yourself. Like, you're so beautiful. You have a beautiful heart, like just lean, like, like I don't want to be patronizing because it's not that fucking easy, right? I'm going to acknowledge that for myself and for you guys, like it's a part of life. But how do we not live there? Is my question and what I'm hoping to answer for you guys in this episode. The truth is we can only wrangle our brains so much. We can only positive affirmation our way so far in life. There will absolutely be times that we need to do a little bit of damage control after our brains ran away with us and that mean girl had her say, right? I don't want to toxic positivity my way out of these things because that has never worked for me and it ends up making me still feel inadequate, right? Like, oh, I can't just be like, okay, I'm just going to be nice to myself now, like, and that I'm not able to do that sometimes. So I have to do a few more things to navigate and manage this. And I wanted to be very real about that with you guys so you didn't feel like you just had to magically snap out of it, but actively use some of my strategies. Like I actually have to do certain things to be able to like get on with the show. Honestly, a lot of these things are pretty simple, but they're not easy. I feel like the tools that I'm going to be sharing with you that I have discovered for myself, I want to live expansively, honestly, and authentically, and all of these things. And I have yet to figure out how to live in a delusion where I am perfect because I am certainly far from it, but I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that I can still live my life out loud and not be wasting so much goddamn time hating myself or comparing myself or feeling not good enough. So I personally have never experienced imposter syndrome in like a gay context, like a queer context, because for me coming out when I realized I was gay, it just felt right. It felt great. I was like, fuck yeah. There was never any question. I never wavered, any of that. I never really felt out of place in the community, especially because like I do lesbianism my way, right? Like I'm femme and I like the girls that I like. I like being femme. I like being a lover girl. Like I don't want to do lesbianism the way someone else may do it, the way a mask girl may do it. Like I do it. I own it. It's very much my identity. I've been lucky enough, even when I was a baby gay, to feel like I was exactly who and how I should be. And I also enjoyed, carving out a space for myself within the community, leaned into my femininity instead of leaned away from it. I reclaimed my femininity for myself and reclaimed it within my community and like created spaces for that, blah, 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 blah. I don't know how to describe it, but you guys are picking up what I'm putting down, right? Like when I first came out, I remember like one time I was like, oh, should I try to be more mask? And I wore like a button up with a tie and then I put on heels and lipstick and I was like, hee hee, look at me, so mask. So I've also had experiences with women. I've had girlfriends, I've dated. I've had lots and lots and lots of experience with women. So that could also help, the fact that I have, gotten to bury my face in many a vagina and it's been glorious and affirming. And of course I've experienced like femme invisibility. I have a whole episode on that, but I always knew that was not like a me problem. That was like a society's perception problem. Even though I personally haven't felt imposter syndrome as a lesbian, I can totally empathize and understand that others may have. However, I have definitely felt imposter syndrome in my career as a dancer, simply because I do not have a dance background and a lot of the performers I work with and the vixens do. They are all so extremely talented and can do all these crazy things. And I'm like, dang. But in spite of things like that, like the fact that I don't have a dance background, I still believe that I am a really good performer. So when I start to feel like I am somehow less than or somehow less deserving of the opportunities to be on a stage and to entertain, I lean into what I do have. Like this is like the start for me. When I start feeling this way, this is like step one, is I kind of just try to like lean into what I do have. Like I may not be a trained dancer, but I have passion, right? And I have natural rhythm. I have lots and lots of stage presence. I have other things that make me engaging on a stage. So even if I don't have a million years of dance training, I can still light up a stage. And I know that, right? Like I know that and I can lean into that, and I know that there are some dancers out there who have a million years of training, but they don't have stage presence or they don't have some of the other things that I have that kind of balance out the scales, so like they end up being less engaging on stage than I am when I'm out here just like dancing like a dad at a barbecue, right? You know what I'm saying? So I try to find the things that I can lean into that make me good at what I do, even if I have some areas where I do feel like I'm lacking. But I choose to focus on what makes me a good performer versus what I lack. Because the fact is, what makes someone an engaging performer on stage does not have to come from some like arbitrary list of requirements. I think about drag queens. Like, this is actually something that I have journaled about, is like there are so many drag queens out there, right? So many of them. And they're all so different, right? Some are, ballad girls, some are pretty girls, some are dolls, some are, trick dancers, some are, like there's so many different ways that drag queens can be engaging, and they all have their own fans. And, the fans might overlap with other drag queens and that sort of thing, but that doesn't mean that their fan base is diminished. A person can be an equal fan of a drag queen who does backflips and death drops versus a girl who is a doll and looks stunning and just kind of walks around lip syncing for her life. Or like pop singers, when you think about pop singers, the same amount of people want to buy tickets to see Sabrina Carpenter that want to see Chappell Roan and Taylor Swift or Young Miko. It doesn't have to be an or. It can be an and, right? I think that's a very powerful statement. Like, thinking about and this is like a side note, just like in life in general, it doesn't have to be or, it can be an and is a very powerful word. This is something that's helped me a lot. I can not be a trained dancer and still be an engaging performer. I cannot be a trained dancer and still be a good dancer, and knowing that there is enough love and success to go around, and you don't have to be exactly like someone else or have what they have to get that love and success. And in fact, not having some of the qualities that someone else has might actually be the thing that makes you successful. It might work in your favor. Like young Miko, right? Might not be rocking a rhinestone onesie like Sabrina Carpenter, but her tank top and beanie is what's making the girls drool over her, right? Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? Like, you don't have to have what someone else has to still have success and to still be a fan favorite in your life, in whatever industry arena that you're struggling in these ways, So sometimes you really have to stop looking at what you lack and stop comparing yourself, and instead to choose to highlight the things you do have. And I hate to break it to you, but like sometimes you do have to force yourself to do that, because either way, you'll find things. And that was like a big realization for me, right? It may sound silly or simple or stupid, but it's actually quite profound. What you look for, you'll find. So if you're looking for negative things, homie, you're going to find them, right? If you're looking for positive things, you will also find those things. So why not try to look for the more positive things, right? Like I always say, I have no interest in being miserable. That's like a huge motto in my life, right? I have no interest in being miserable. So if I have a choice to start looking for the negative things, which will lead me down the path of feeling more miserable, and I have a choice to try to look for the more positive things, which will end up making things a little less miserable, I'm going to choose that path because I have no interest in being miserable. It feels better to look for the positive things than it is to overload yourself with the negative things. And you don't have to think you're perfect, and you don't have to think that certain realities don't exist, but it's okay to choose a more positive focused life. Like, it's okay to do that. It's okay to accept that life is not black and white, and yet still make the choice to not make your life harder or less beautiful or less fun or less happy. Like, it is okay to make choices that make your life feel better for yourself. Like, you can today, this very day, make the choice, you have choices here. That's like all life is. It's about choices, but you have the choice to start focusing more on your goddess given gifts, focusing more on what makes you important and special, which makes you different from someone else, and lean more into that versus wasting your time, choosing to waste your time by searching and focusing on the negative. But sometimes just choosing to take a happier view of life doesn't cut it. And trying to do all of this in your brain alone, just like up there, is not the tea, right? Okay. I get that. You can only positively affirm your way so far in life. I hear that, but it's step one. Give it a shot, right? Like that's like the first line of defense in this like making your life better thing. So for me, like when I'm really, really stuck in that like negative loop like that, it helps me to write things down. This is my second line of defense against my brain. Y'all know how much I love journaling. It's such an important, significant, incredible, life-altering tool. But this is sometimes what I do in my journal. I'll write down what I'm feeling. I'll start with the negative thoughts or the focus on the lack or the comparison or like whatever it is. And then I will write down things to counter that. Or I'll start writing down the things that I do have. Sometimes it really helps to just see it like down on paper. Like you can see like, okay, all these things that I might be lacking, but then these are things that I have, and these hold weight. These things are pretty important too. Or to give myself legit reasons that I can see down on paper for why I have the things I have, right? So like I am a dancer, and so I'll write down like I might not have dance training, but I'm still a good dancer. I'm really fun on stage. I have stage presence. I have natural rhythm. I have a shit ton of passion, you know. And then it's like, okay, that does outweigh the fact that I don't have that training, you know. And sometimes then I can write down like what I've seen sometimes with some trained dancers, that they have a hard time breaking the fourth wall, or they have a hard time, you know, being engaging to an audience versus just being on a stage. And so like I'll write down some of those things too, like where, you know, maybe I would love a dance background, but there might be some cons to that I don't have. You know, I've never had a fourth wall in my life. I am literally in your cleavage when I'm performing, and that's great. And I love that. And some trained dancers struggle with that. And I sure don't. So I'll be up close. I'm gonna smell your pheromones. Perspective is so huge, and that cannot be overstated enough, my friends. Perspective is literally everything. It's like our entire worlds are in our heads. It's all perspective. It's all how we're viewing things. And so if you can kind of wrangle that perspective, you can literally change your whole life. You know, we get squished down in our brains so much, you know, and our perspectives, they shrink. They shrink down to these hyper-focused little laser moments. That hyper-focus isn't accurate. So we like can't see the bigger, more accurate picture when we're so squished down like that, when we're so like in our brains so tightly. So giving yourself the gift of perspective, like for example, writing things down so you can see the difference, you know, it's so huge. Like whether you do that on your own in your brain with journaling, you know, or asking a friend what they see so they can help you give perspective, you know, whatever, just getting out of your head, because we can really shrink ourselves down. We really can just shrink ourselves down and then not see the forest for that tiny little shrub that we're focusing on so much, you know? Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. And then if I'm still not feeling good enough after kind of getting that perspective and writing things down, then I'll write what the hell it is that I can do about it, right? If there is anything I can do about this feeling of lack. So something I like to do is like write down all the things that I can't control. Things that just like I can't change, can't control. I can't go back in time, do something differently. I can't change it. These things are set in stone. They just are. I have to accept them. But then I write down the things that I actually might have some control over, some things that I might be able to change. The truth is, you know, is that there's some shit that you just can't change. You got to face that reality, my friends. I hate it. I hate it too. Don't worry. I hate it too. But once you accept that, you can move on to the things you can actually control. And sometimes taking action is the tool that's needed, right? Like to get you moving forward in life. Like for example, makeup. Let's talk makeup. I feel like I am not very good at doing my own makeup. And I always laugh when you guys are like, hey, can you do like a tutorial on how you did your eye makeup? And I'm like, I did it while I was driving and it looks terrible, but okay. You just wing it. I don't know. But I feel like I just don't think I do my makeup that well. Like I think I do it okay enough. I'm not like a makeup artist. I'm more like a makeup tomboy, if you will, right? Like I can get by. I can do my face enough for a stage so that my features don't entirely disappear under like the spotlight. That we're going to use this makeup thing as an example for some other things as I go along. Okay. So like, let's say it's really bothering me one day that like I can't do my makeup as well as I would hope, right? Like I'm not very good at it. Like, let's say I just was in a show where all the performers had such a beat on that they looked just like, wow, like their makeup was just unbelievable. Right. And then there I am looking like, I don't know, like not as good. Okay. Not as good. Perhaps my eyeliner looks like a little kid was playing with a Sharpie. You know, who's to say? Whatever. I just don't feel like it looks as good as anyone else's. So I'll write down what I can't control and then what I can control. For example, if I could legitimately hire a makeup artist, right? I could hire a makeup artist to either do my makeup or to teach me how to do my makeup. Or I could watch some YouTube tutorials. What could I legitimately do to make my makeup better? But then as I'm writing these things down, I'm realizing, I don't think I'm actually going to do any of those things. I don't think I'm going to hire a makeup artist. I don't think I'm going to watch any YouTube videos. Who has the time? And then I'll be like, my makeup's fine. My makeup's good enough. It's fine. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling less annoyed about the fact that like everyone's makeup looked fantastic and mine wasn't that great. You know, I could get better. I could. I totally could. I believe that. But the time and energy it would take to hone those skills, me not liking my makeup doesn't outweigh that time and energy that it would take to get better. You know, so that helps me snap out of it and get on with the show. Like, you know, I do my makeup. I'm like, okay, so what we're working with, Lego. But let's say that I realize, no, this is really, really bothering me. I really do want to get better at it. Like, you know, then I could take a couple classes with a makeup artist if that's what I wanted to do. At least now after writing these things down, I have a plan of action, right? Is what I'm saying. Instead of just wasting my time complaining to myself that I don't like my makeup. Like I'm like, okay, girl, well, you could get better. You could improve if you would like to. And then I was like, no, I'm all right. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Like writing these things down can help you figure out if there is something that you can legitimately do about not feeling good enough with something. Or maybe you'll realize it's actually not that big a deal. You were just PMSing. Everything is fine. And you were just letting that inner critic have her moment, because at the end of the day, you realize that you didn't actually care enough to put in the effort to change it. So like me with makeup, but maybe you realized it does bother you, right? Like it does bother you enough. So you sign up for a workshop or classes or night school or whatever it is that could improve your skills and make you feel less like an imposter in whatever area or industry you are feeling that. I'm talking about agency. Like I'm talking about taking responsibility, taking control over your life. Like these are things that help me move forward. It's like, do I just want to complain about something or do I want to feel better and move forward? Once again, I have no interest in being miserable, and just complaining about something tends to lead me down the path of feeling miserable. Whereas a plan of action leads me down to feel like I have agency over my life, responsibility, accountability, control, and then I feel better and my life improves because I'm actually doing things to improve my life instead of just throwing a pity party for myself. With a plan and with writing these things down, we can feel less helpless and less like a victim of circumstance. If we can turn those feelings into action, we can legit change our lives. And if that's something that you're feeling, I would recommend writing it down, getting a plan of action going, getting that perspective, and doing these kinds of things. And writing things down also helps when you are comparing yourself to someone else or to other people. Or at least it does for me. Okay, remember, these are all just tools and things that I use to help me snap myself out of it, because I am in an industry full of competition, full of comparison, full of other performers and talented, sexy, amazing people. And so, things happen. So sometimes when I'm feeling a little down on myself because I've compared myself to someone and I came up lacking, I'll write down some lists, right? Like one will be things that they have that I don't. Then I'll write down the things that I know that I do have that are important or significant. And then if there's anything on the list of things that they have that I don't have, but that I do want, I'll see if I can change the focus back onto my own life and make changes in my own life to improve it. This is the critical key though. It's the reframing and the refocusing your energy back onto bettering your own life, not bitching about someone else's. For example, the makeup thing, right? Like let's say one of the vixens does her makeup and it looks so pretty, which like all of them do, to be honest. They're all like makeup artists. It's ridiculous. It's fine. Anyway, I'm not bitter. And they look like a Sephora ad and I look like a little kid playing with my mom's makeup, right? Like, so this is the vibe I'm feeling, this is the things I'm feeling, whatever. I might write down some of the things that like bum me out, the things that like I can't change. For example, some of the vixens, they just don't sweat. It's really crazy. It's honestly impressive, but they just don't sweat. They don't sweat on their faces. It's weird. Not weird. It's just, it couldn't be me, right? So by the end of the night, their makeup still looks incredible and I have sweat mine off. Mine is gone. Mine does not no longer exist. I can like bitch about that or be upset about it or be sad or whatever, or I could start using a setting spray or a primer and maybe that will help. Or maybe the vixen's like super good at doing her eyeliner, but it's because she's using a holy grail eyeliner product and so that's why it looks so good. So maybe I can ask her for that product and then I can start using it and then my eyeliner can look better. Instead of hating on her or myself, I'll just try to make my makeup better, last longer, whatever the case may be. And yeah, like the sweating your makeup off thing may not ever be something I can change because I dance my ass off and my makeup just doesn't stick around, but like that's just a fact, homies, and I have accepted it. But we're just using these things as examples to help you figure out your own life. Okay, it is what it is. Makeup is just the easiest example I'm using for this episode. Substitute that for whatever you're dealing with or feeling your sad girl feelings about, okay? Also, the phrase, it is what it is, bro, that shit is profound. It is what it is. I know it sounds simple, but like, just let it sink in for a second. It is what it is. Like, some things just are what they are. Some things just is what it is. And if you can accept that, man, your life gets so much easier. Trust me on this one. I used to hate that phrase, it is what it is, but now I love it. Like, I love it. I'm like, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. And then I can move on with my life. Even, like it is what it is, right? Using that phrase, like even when you're not feeling gay enough, let's talk about that for a second. Life is a journey And you really don't have to do it how anyone else is doing it. Just because someone was out at age 13, had their first girlfriend in high school, doesn't mean that you coming out at 30 or 40 or 50 and not yet having a queer relationship doesn't mean that you are any less valid. That's just part of your journey and your story. Your story as it is important too. Your story of coming out at 50 is just as important as someone who came out when they were 13. It is still valid. Your story of coming out at 50 might make someone else feel a little less alone and a little less weird and a little more accepted too. So don't forget that your journey as it is as important as someone else's, and it's as sexy and fun, and it's yours. And yeah, of course, we all wish we didn't date men and only dated women. Of course, naturally. You can lament that. That's fine. But there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to this journey of life. You might have experienced comp het, internalized homophobia, religious trauma, just not realizing you were gay, not meeting anyone you found attractive enough to date who sparks that chemistry and makes you go holy shit, I think I'm gay, right? There are so many variables that make the queer experience unique and a timeline all on your own. Whatever your timeline is your timeline. It doesn't make it any less valid. It is part of the journey. It's part of the queer spectrum, actually. In fact, it is part of the queer experience to have your timeline be individual to you. If every single person who is queer came out at 13 and that would be just one thing, but that's not how it is. No queer experience is the same. So don't get down on yourself. Don't feel any less valid. Don't feel any less like part of our community when you are exactly who and how you should be. Your timeline is exactly what it should be. It's a journey and it is what it is, my friends. It is what it is. Another thing that is helpful, annoying, but helpful, is facing these realities of life, trying to accept them. People might legitimately have the things that you want in life that you don't have, but that's part of life. Someone might have the money you want, the face you want, the body you want, the training you want, the family background you want, whatever it might be. It might just be the reality that they have that and you don't. That is their thing, their journey, whatever, and this is yours, But the grass is not always greener. We are all given things and not given other things. To be totally honest, I have known some gorgeous people, beautiful people, some of the most beautiful people I've ever seen in my whole life, and they are boring as fuck. They're so boring, it's surprising. Or there's some talented ass dancers who I think are just so amazing, but they can't connect with an audience for shit. So they get up on stage and people start texting or looking away or whatever. And I'm like, they just did a backflip and no one cares, right? The grass might not always be greener. And another thing, not for nothing, but I've known some people who have hated a feature of their face, right? But it was a feature that I found gorgeous, beguiling, couldn't stop looking at them because of that one feature that they hated, right? And from my perspective, it made them so interesting and beautiful and incredible. So maybe something that I hate about the way I look makes me beautiful to someone else, right? You just don't know. I honestly don't think any of us actually know what we look like, to be honest, but that's just me. I don't think I know what I look like for shit, but that's fine. Also, not for nothing, but your hormones, yeah, I'm getting into it. Your hormones can legit control so much about how you're feeling. So don't forget to ride those waves and not take them too seriously. I'll wake up one day and look in the mirror and be like, what the fuck? And then look at my period and I'll be like, there it is. And other days I'll wake up and be like, okay, girl, you killing it today, and that's because my hormones are being nice to me that day. So don't forget that shit like that plays a role in how we feel. And emotions, they come and go, they don't last. Your hormones up and down all over the place. So you just kind of have to ride those waves. Ride those waves. How you feel right now is not how you're going to feel tomorrow. So keep in mind that those uncomfy, bad, sad emotions will not last. Remind yourself of that. You felt good before, you will feel good again. But using some of these tools and strategies that I've been talking about today might help you get there quicker or easier and without exacerbating the problem. And in fact, you might be better able to take agency over your life and start creating a life you love more versus just feeling stuck. I'm really big on taking control, taking our power back, taking agency over our own lives and moving, because so much of this is just a huge waste of time and energy. And once I can remind myself of that, I'm much better able to break away from these things that hold me down and keep me stuck and get on with it. get things moving again. I get a lot done because of these strategies. Like acknowledging the huge waste of time that some of this has been so instrumental in me breaking away from it. So with all of this, my best advice is move. Get moving and shaking, because being frozen and hating yourself, it ain't it, kid. It ain't it. It doesn't change anything. That's also something that hit me really hard, is like me comparing myself, picking myself apart, yada, yada, doesn't change my life for the better. It doesn't make me more beautiful or more successful, and it doesn't make someone else less beautiful and less successful. It doesn't make their makeup worse just by having a pity party about my makeup, So do something. Do something. Write that shit down. Snap yourself out of it. Tell yourself how much of a waste of time it is to sit there and ruminate on this bullshit, and put some action in place. Even if it's to walk away from the mirror and go take a walk outside, look at the trees and the flowers and the sky, and shift your focus away from that shrunken down little pity party that we sometimes throw for ourselves. And again, all of this is just what I do to keep my shit together, to keep it moving, to keep it shaking, to keep kicking ass. And if I do say so myself, I do a pretty good job of kicking ass. Life has not been easy, but I have made it beautiful for myself, because I take the time to wrangle my fucking brain, to write shit down, to get perspective, to put action into place, to take agency over my life. Like, I'm not a victim of my circumstances. I'm not a victim of anything. Like, I can literally change my life at any point just by choosing to do so, just by using these tools and strategies and making the decision to like shift my focus. Take all this as you will, but like maybe give it a shot and go conquer the world, That's what I say. I really do not think that we deserve to be miserable, to hate ourselves. I really do think that we deserve to be happy and thriving and attracting even more good things into our lives, like gay girls. My favorite type of girl is a gay girl. Just a side note, irrelevant to the story, but not irrelevant if you are wanting to have an experience with a gay girl and you haven't yet. Living a thriving, happy life does attract more people into your life. So that's another hot tip from me. If you want to date girls, make your life awesome. Anyway, that's about it for me today on this episode. I just wanted to kind of ramble with y'all about how I feel and the things I do to get my life moving and to get going. I really try to create in my life the best possible life, because why the fuck not? You got to live it. You're the one living it. I'm the one living this life. And like, do I want to look back and be like, man, I spent that whole day, that whole month, that whole year, that whole lifetime being down on myself and complaining? Or do I want to be like, hey, man, I really did my best to like live a cool ass life. I'd rather that. I want to live a cool ass life. But it takes work. It does take work. It ain't easy. It's much easier to live a negative life than it is to live one of purpose and engagement with the world and with yourself. That's not easy, but it gets easier. It gets easier the more you do it. Trust me. I've been doing this for a while, and my life is pretty fucking magical. Not because life is magical itself, but because I looked for the magic. I focus on the magic. I accept that a lot of things are not magical, but I want to give the magic in my life a fighting chance to take over. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So good to be back, Feels real nice. I absolutely adore all of you for sticking with me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to give me a follow, give me a like, give me a review. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you want the next episode to be about. I'm considering comp het, because some of y'all didn't know what the fuck I meant when I posted about that in my Instagram story. So we might roll with that. This episode is more just like motivational for myself. Like, I was just thinking about my own life and wanted to share with you some of the ways I make it better. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're having a wonderful day or night or whatever it is. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I will see you in the next episode, I think. Yeah. You can watch me talk on YouTube if y'all are interested. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, I put these up on YouTube, so you can watch me and occasionally see a cat or two. Anyway, love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.